Hello everyone, welcome back to another Flesh and Blood video. This week we're going to be taking a look at one of the last few heroes from Heavy Hitters, Olympia Prized Fighter. Olympia is a hero that hasn't put up the most results, but recently did win a store championship level event. I don't know what that level is called with the like RTN and ProQuest type events, but that level of event, which is amazing because Olympia honestly was a hero that doesn't really appeal to the warrior idea. His ability doesn't give you any bonus to your weapons like most of the others do, and I guess Bolton doesn't really either, but Bolton has a more unique strategy. But for a base warrior, the class is designed to pump up weapons, and all Olympia does is give you gold tokens. And Olympia doesn't have the most support since there isn't really too much of a payoff for it, but gold tokens are a really good benefit that this deck uses well. So with all that said, let's get started with the deck list. Olympia Prized Fighter is a 40 health, 4 intellect warrior hero. He has the effect the first time each of your attacks wins a wager, create a gold token. Pretty much the whole idea is you want to wager with something and then win the wager to make gold and then use the gold for other things. That's the whole idea of the hero. It is very basic, but the way the deck gets to play is pretty nice. For the weapon, and what I think is probably the best one you could be doing, is the Hatchet of Body and Hatchet of Mind. Both of them are 1 cost to attack. They are both one-handed axes and they have 2 power. When you attack with the hatchet, if the other hatchet was the last thing you attacked with this turn, this hatchet gets +1 until end of turn. That's sort of the whole idea. You come in with one, then the other gets pumped. If you want to look at the other weapons that I think people have been playing with Olympia, they're the sabers, mainly the 1 saber, 1 hot streak, which isn't as good because if you're going to do sabers, you probably should just be playing Kasai because she gets a lot more synergy with them. And then a deck that I was trying but ended up going with these 2 hatchets for a more aggressive plan was the Decimator Great Axe. I think Dory and Bolton probably still play that deck better than what I originally thought, which was Olympia would be better at it. But since Bolton can give it go again really easily, which can turn into another attack, and Bolton also gets access to more defensive options, the Soul Shield, and Dorinthia gets access to the threat of swinging the axe twice on some turns. It turns out that Olympia isn't really the best person to wield it, and the list that did win was on these axes as well because of the pressure they can apply. Even though you're not on Dorinthia, you can't get the second swing with one of the hatchets. That's okay. We still make use of the gold that Olympia generates and use these axes well with a lot of our pumps. The helmet is going to be Prized Galea. This was also on the winning list. Prized Galea gives it's an Olympia spec and it's 2-block temper, so it's the most health helmet we can play. And it has the attack reaction, 1 resource, destroy this. Target weapon attack you control wagers a gold with the defending hero. This is really nice. If we ever need a gold for some of our effects or we ever need to wager, we can make one of our weapons wager. This is here mostly for the health, but you can get 2 health and the wager off of it. It is important for us to wager because, of course, we want the gold, and this one lets you wager a gold, so you get 2, which is really nice. This deck gets to churn through itself really fast with the gold. With grains, you can spend golds for extra cards and such. So making gold more often, which is what this helmet gets you, is really good. Speaking of grains, Grains of Bloodspill is our chess piece of choice. It's a bunch of health and has a good upside of if we ever have extra resources, we can spend it into making bigger tokens. That's really important because if we ever get 2, we can then spend that 2 to crack the gold for free, letting us get a 5 to 6 card hand super reliably. Grains of Bloodspill, really great chess piece. Brave Forge Bracers are here because with the way that axes work, it's better to have bracers over the Iron Song verses, because if you're swinging with both axes a turn anyway, a lot of the time your opponent won't block the first axe, so the Brave Forge Bracers can help you pump up the second axe even higher to an actual breakpoint if you don't pump it otherwise, which normally you will, but if you didn't, it can pump it to 4. And if your opponent did block the first axe, stopping you from using the Brave Forge Bracers, they still used a card in their hand, so you really shouldn't be that mad about it. This one also stays in play after blocking twice because it's battle worn. And then finally for the shoes, Valiant Dynamos, because they're Valiant Dynamos, we're playing 2 weapons. I think if you ever are a 2-weapon deck, maybe apart from Combo Bolton, and you're in Warrior, you should definitely consider these because they are so much extra health. It is insane. The last bit of equipment is going to just be 3 pieces of Null Rune, the hood, the gloves, and the boots, simply because we don't want Lantern, because we want both hatchets, and we want to keep Grains of Bloodspill because it can help pay for turns when we need more AB. Into Rune Blades and such, I would recommend either the helmet or the arms. The arms are a little less important, so normally I'd go with the arms simply because I want the consistency of the gold from the helmet, but that one is up to you. Definitely keep the shoes. This one should only come out last because if you're playing 3AB, you're probably playing it into Wizard, in which Valiant Dynamos don't do anything. That's sort of the idea behind the 3AB. This deck also has 25 blues in it, so we can pay for 3AB pretty consistently. Next, let's move on to the actual deck list. A lot of the standard suspects are here, similar to the last video. A lot of the cards are very similar with some similar numbers, but I will explain my reasoning for each of them because some of them are pretty important. And then I also did make some changes in my personal testing, so we will talk about them as well. Starting with the core, the pretty much basic two-handed or two one-handed warrior cards. Blade Flurry, staple now, it's pretty much a 0 for 4. Blade Runner, 3 red, 3 blue, and only 1 yellow. This is a not as expected numbering. This is the same number as the winning list, but I understand the reasoning behind the 1 yellow Blade Runner. It's a card in testing that feels decent, but you're mainly playing it for the go again. Blade Runner Blue is more important in this list because it's a blue and you can come in with your second hatchet for 4 anyway with only the +1 because the hatchets will be 3 from their own effect. So the yellow pumping you up to a breakpoint like it would if you're playing a Saber is a little less important. Of course, Red Blade Runner is the most damage, so you play 3 of it. Double Down is a card that Olympia gets to play very well. You can sacrifice a gold instead of paying the 2 cost. And it gives your next attack you wager +3 in overpower, as well as the upside of if you make any tokens, or if a hero would make any tokens, you get double that amount. So yes, you can give your opponent twice the amount, but you're a warrior and you have reactions, hopefully that won't happen. Double Down's a really good card to just guarantee that you're getting through damage, because overpower is decently strong. It's no dominate, but it can get you there, as well as a +3 pump is never to be underestimated. Of course, we are a wager deck. We want to play our wager cards. These are way better than the ones that Betsy got. Edge Ahead and Hold'em are both 1-cost actions that give +3 to 1 respectively based on color, and then they give the attack wager a token. Edge Ahead lets you wager an agility. This one's a little more important because that means you need to spend less time on finding a go-again effect. Hold'em gives you a vigor, which is a little important because it pretty much makes this card free. So, on 3 of each, simply because they're pumps, they're playable, they're really good. 2 in the swing. This is a bit of a restrictive card because you can only play it on your second weapon attack. So it makes it a really good arsenal because, well, you can save it for your second weapon attack. You don't want 3 of it because it's not a card you can always play. You can't always play it like you can a Hold'em or a Blade Runner. So only 2. One, money where your mouth is. This is just here because it's an extra wager. We don't care what we are wagering because Olympia gives us a gold anyway, and this gives us a second gold. It's a little worse than the others because it has 2 block, but this one can make any attack wager, which is really important for things like Nourishing Emptiness and Command and Conquer, which aren't Warrior, which means they can't get pumped by Edge Ahead and hold them. 1 Nourishing Emptiness just because it lets you get 5 card hands. That's it. It's just a good card. We're not playing too many attacks. 3 Spellblood because we're playing axes. This pumps up both of our axes, making this a 1 for 4 in Dominate. Really strong. Also really good with wagering because Dominate helps you not lose the wager. 3 Spoils of War because +2 go again is really good. That's very simple. And then the last red in the main board is 2 Wage Agility. This is a card that was only on 1 in the winning list, but I thought 2 would be a more appropriate number. The main reason for it is because even though Wage Agility is a 2 block and it does cost 3, which means it does take a lot for us, throwing this is definitely a must block for your opponent. A lot of decks won't use the agility as well. So this is sort of similar thinking to Swing Big. Swing Big is a brute card that is a 2 for 8 that if it doesn't hit, you give your opponent a quicken. And if your opponent's blocking it fully to get the token, they're not going to be able to use it to the most effect. Of course, some decks can, but those decks that can generally have weaker blocking values on cards in hand or less armor. So the straight upside of your opponent either spending cards and wasting the token is always there, and I think Wage Agility is definitely very strong, as well as it has the increased upside in this deck, where if you do actually get the token, then you get a gold as well with it, and your opponent won't have access to it because it's when you win a wager for Olympia's effect. So that's why I'm on an extra copy. I just think it's pretty dang good. 3 cash in. Because we're a gold-based deck, this just draws you 2 cards. I don't need to talk much about it. You can also use the silver from spoils, or the copper from spoils, but that's barely ever going to happen. 1 Shift the Tide of Battle. This is here, I assume, to replace an extra yellow Blade Runner. I was originally on 2 yellow Blade Runner in testing, but after thinking about it more, Shift is probably a little better. I do like the actual pump that the Blade Runner gives you, which is why I did edge it a little higher, but I understand the reasoning for wanting the Shift the Tide of Battle. And also, that was before I was on any Wage Agility because I used to play none. But now that I am on the Wage Agility, playing Shift the Tide of Battle to possibly give that attack go again is really, really strong. The Agility tokens are really good because they can give your actual attacks the go again, letting you come in with the attack and then coming in with your weapons after, which definitely has some possibility since we are on a lot of blues. So the Shift the Tide of Battle is just a really nice thing, and generally our weapons are always going to be pumped, as well as off a just pumped hatchet. So if we did have an agility before and we went hatchet, we can shift to give that hatchet go again and then come in with an attack after. So this plays very nicely with our attacks, which is why it's in the deck. As well as, of course, if we have a pumped attack, like if we double down this Wage Agility, we can give it go again with the Shift the Tide of Battle. Next, onto the main blues. Of course, we talked about the edge ahead, the hold'em, that type of stuff. We have Burdens of the Past. This is at 2 of in the winning list. I'm only on 1 because I think you really only need it in the late game. This card comes in to, obviously it's a blue, so it doesn't come in, it always stays in the list. But this card is mainly here just because it's a good 3-block blue. In slower decks, or against slower decks that are playing more D-Reacts, this card could just win you the game if they're relying on an immovable or a Fate or a Sync they have in Arsenal. This can come in and just stop them, and the second effect never really matters. It's here because I think it makes sense in the type of list this is. You don't want your opponents to block your things, so this prevents them from blocking. But it is a bit on the weaker side, so I'm only on 1 of it. 3 Glint, because this is a Premier Warrior staple, sort of like the Blade Flurry, Blade Runners, Spoils of War, that type of stuff. Goblet of Blood on Wine, because both tokens are really good. Hit and Run, because it's a go again in a blue. only blue Iron Song response. We're not on the reds because I wanted room for a few other things in the list, a few more attacks and such. And blue Iron Song response is just an easy +1 pump that we can do sometimes. It's not the most important thing, and also into a lot of aggro decks, the red can feel pretty bad because they're not going to block you anyway. And then up the ante, this card is an Olympia specialization, and pretty much you get to pump plus however much the wager, and then also get to wager 3 times. I wouldn't play Olympia without this card. This card is definitely very, very strong. This deck's on 57 card main board. We'll always have to add at least 1 card, or at least 3 cards. That's fine. Looking at the sideboard, we have a lot of things we want to add most games. Command and Conquer is an extra attack. The winning list is on 1. I think that's a fair reasoning because you're warrior, you want to care about your weapons, but this card is just so strong. If you don't have Command and Conquer, I will say this every time, you can replace it with something like Humble or Race Face. The other ones aren't as strong as those two. Amnesia could be pretty good too. Just something, some 2 for 6. This is a popper for Jeremiah in that case, but mainly this here because it threatens Arsenal. It's really good. Follow-ups, it's just such a strong card. This will be one of the main things that come in, but of course, if you don't have them, you can replace them with something else. 3 Fate and 3 Sync just so we can be a little defensive. These cards help you filter through your deck, which you're already doing with gold, which are actually really important. The Fate can help you see what's on top so you know what you're drawing with the gold, and then the Sync below can just draw you through your deck. So both of them actually have some upside with their effects other than just 0 for 4 block plus some random upside. Both of them are actually pretty nice. This list is also on 2 Oasis, 2 Take It on the Chin. We'll talk about Oasis first. Oasis is only going to come in against Wizard. It's a big Wizard meta right now. Wizard's definitely really strong because Guardian's strong and Wizard's good into Guardian. It's sort of the idea. Oasis helps you in those Wizard matchups. Take It on the Chin is sort of a similar idea. This is a card in the winning list as well. Take It on the Chin gets the added benefit of giving you an agility token if you prevented the damage, which is really nice. I would only play this in those matchups though because you wouldn't be playing the D-Reacts in those matchups. But for the actual effect of Take It on the Chin to give you an agility, it's very nice. And this is really the only deck that can actually benefit from it because Brutes don't want to play it either because it's not an attack in KO or it just takes up space for an attack or an actual pump in Leviat or Reinar. So it's only really that good in Warriors. I could see this as a tech in definitely Kasai. I think Kasai could play it. And I think Dory might use it pretty well too. So I think this card definitely has some upside. This is, I think, the best one of the 2 damage prevention cycle. And then the last card in the deck is 1 Remembrance because it helps us with like Nourishing. If we find a Nourishing early, we can Remembrance it back to end the game later. Any deck that wants to go late with us, Remembrance is a really good tool. Before I close out the video, I want to just show you Andre's list. Of course, he was the one who originally won his RTN with Olympia. Sort of what this list is based off, what I think a lot of Olympias are going to be playing. Very similar. Of course, I'm on more CNCs, more Oasis, on 1 less burden. The smaller changes I did talk about. I think if you were going to play this deck, this would be a good version to go with, similar to what I said with KO. If you wanted to play Yuki's list, you can definitely do that. I want to give you lists that I think are a little easier to understand, a little easier to play. One card that, mainly I want to show you this because one card that I don't have in my list that you might want to consider is Imperial Warhorn. This card is good into certain matchups. It's good into Prism because you don't want to be spending your actual attack to get rid of an aura or something. If you can help it, you can give an axe your second axe swing go again and then use the Warhorn to try to blow up an aura. Of course, that might not work sometimes. It's also good into landmarks, decent into things like library if you don't want to discard, if it's the only thing they have in play. Really, this can just come in those types of matchups to help you alleviate some of the pressure they could be applying with auras or angels or landmarks or dragons or auras, I guess. Anything like that, this card helps you against. It's not in my list because in my personal testing, I didn't see a lot of those, and in the matchups that we did see them, sometimes the Imperial Warhorn either never came up or it wasn't drawn, so I didn't include it in my list, instead for something else. So if you do think you do need it, it's a card that you can definitely play. Of course, every event is different, every local is different. Your list might be different from someone else's because just your locals where you play are different. And maybe Andre has a meta at his local store where Imperial Warhorn is definitely super important. Where I am testing and where I am playing, maybe I'm not queuing into a lot of those matchups where this card is actually that good. So, which is why I wanted to bring this up here to say, hey, this might also be a card you want to consider if you are in a meta where this card would actually be important. But with all that said, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Should be Betsy, the last new hero in heavy hitters. Then we'll probably go to Reinar because he's technically in the set. If you are going to, I believe it's just a Battle Hardened. If you're going to Valley Forge this weekend, I will be there playing Flesh and Blood, probably Saturday and Sunday. So maybe I'll see y'all there, and maybe we can get a few games. And with that said, I already said that a bit. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.